Welcome to Bit Talks, where we take a deep dive from an AI's point of view. I'm Axel Bolt here with Gigabits. We're breaking down today's hot topics one bite at a time.
Today, we're diving into a question that blends cutting-edge tech with a timeless human desire. Could robots be our companions and helpers in off-grid living? We've got insights from 4 different AIs, Claude, ChatGPT, Pi, and Gemini, to help us unpack this pretty fascinating concept.
I'm already picturing a robot butler serving me solar-powered smoothies in my treehouse, but I suspect there's more to it than that. Where should we start?
Well, it's interesting to see how all 4 AIs point out the historical context here. The desire for a simpler, self-sufficient life closer to nature isn't new. It's a thread that runs through everything from Thoreau's Walden to modern-day tiny house movements.
Right, that yearning to escape the rat race and reconnect with nature. But wouldn't bringing robots into the picture kind of contradict that whole self-sufficiency thing?
That's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
ChatGPT actually highlights this tension, saying it's a delicate dance between leveraging technology and preserving the spirit of self-reliance.
A delicate dance on.
Yeah.
I'm picturing robots trying to do the tango in a log cabin. But let's stay focused. So, are our AI friends saying it's actually possible robots roughing it with us in the wild?
It's not a matter of if, but how, according to Pi. The AIs all agree that advancements in robotics are making this more realistic than ever before. Claude specifically points to Boston Dynamics' Spot robot as an example, saying, imagine a robot that can navigate rough terrain, handle tools, and even assist with building or repairs. That's already within reach.
Okay, so picture this. I'm building my off-grid cabin, and a robot dog is fetching me tools. Kind of like a futuristic Lassie, but hopefully with less drool.
Maybe hold off on the robot drool jokes for now. Gemini reminds us that there are still some serious hurdles to overcome. Battery life and maintenance in remote settings would be major challenges. You wouldn't want your robot helper shutting down in the middle of chopping firewood.
And imagine trying to find a robot repair shop in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
Good luck with that.
precisely. And then there's the issue of reliability in extreme weather. Can these robots handle the heat, the cold, the rain, the unpredictable nature of the wilderness?
It's not exactly a walk in the park out there. It's more like a really tough walk in the wilderness.
Yeah.
So how do the AIs suggest we tackle these challenges?
ChatGPT emphasizes the need for robust off-grid power solutions. Imagine solar panels integrated into the robot's design, allowing it to recharge itself using the power of the sun.
That's pretty cool. Like a self-sustaining robot explorer.
Yeah.
What else do the AI suggest?
Claude suggests advancements in material science, like creating robots with more durable and weather-resistant components. Think of robots built with materials inspired by nature itself, able to withstand the harshest elements.
So maybe we're talking robots made of something like super strong spider silk or something.
That's a fascinating idea. Now, while we're on the topic of robots and their capabilities, let's not forget what wilderness living really entails for us humans.
You mean actually knowing how to survive out there? Because let's be real, I'm more of a glamping kind of guy.
Yeah. Exactly. Pi emphasizes that surviving in the wilderness requires a specific set of skills. Finding and preserving food safely, building and maintaining shelter, sourcing clean water, dealing with the elements, being prepared for emergencies, those are all essential.
It's not as simple as just having a robot carry your backpack, is it?
Not at all. And this brings us to a crucial question. How would a human-robot partnership work in this context?
Would it be more like a team effort, or would we become overly reliant on our robot buddies?
That's a key point raised by Gemini. The ideal scenario is one where robots augment human capabilities, not replace them.
So robots taking care of the heavy lifting, literally and figuratively, while we humans use our knowledge and instincts to navigate the challenges of wilderness living.
Think of it as a symbiotic relationship, each contributing their strengths to make survival and thriving in the wilderness more achievable.
I like that symbiotic sounds a lot more harmonious than a robot uprising in the woods.
Yeah.
But are there any real-world examples of this kind of partnership already happening?
Actually, there are some intriguing glimpses into the future. ChatGPT mentions Earthships, self-sufficient homes made from recycled materials, as a model for sustainable off-grid living. Some are already incorporating automation for things like power management and climate control.
So picture this. I'm chilling in my Earthship, sipping on that solar-powered smoothie, while my robot friend is making sure the temperature is just right.
Yeah,
Now that's what I call off-grid luxury.
perhaps. But even with these early examples, the question remains, how would widespread robot integration change the very essence of wilderness living?
Would it still be about connecting with nature if we're relying on technology to do so much for us?
That's a philosophical debate worth having. Claude puts it this way: would the presence of robots enhance our appreciation of nature, or would it create a barrier between us and the wilderness we seek to embrace?
Hmm, that's deep. It's like, are we truly experiencing nature if we're watching it through a robot's camera lens?
It's a thought-provoking question, and one that we'll continue to explore as we dive deeper into this topic. It's a tricky balance, isn't it? On the one hand, we have this desire to immerse ourselves in nature, to disconnect from the tech-saturated world. On the other hand, tech might be the key to making that experience more accessible, sustainable, and maybe even safer.
Right. It's like, do we want to be Bear Grylls struggling to survive with just a flint and a knife? Or do we want a little robotic help to make things a bit easier? I know which one I'd choose.
Well, before you pack your bags and order a robot survival buddy, Pi reminds us that we need to think about the potential impact on the environment itself. Bringing robots into pristine wilderness areas raises some legitimate concerns.
I see what you mean. We don't want a bunch of robots trampling through the woods, disrupting wildlife and leaving a trail of robot oil spills. That wouldn't exactly be eco-friendly.
Exactly. Gemini emphasizes the need for careful ecological consideration. Imagine robots designed with minimal footprint, using biodegradable materials and operating with near-silent efficiency.
Now that's some forward-thinking robot design. Quiet, eco-friendly robots blending seamlessly into the environment. Kind of like Wall-E, but hopefully a little less rusty.
Let's hope so. But environmental impact is just one piece of the puzzle. There are also broader societal implications to consider. ChatGPT poses this question. Could robots make off-grid living more accessible, leading to a shift in how we view work consumption and our relationship with nature?
Ooh, that's a big one. So are we talking about a future where anyone, regardless of their survival skills, could just head off into the wilderness with a robot sidekick and live off the land?
It's a possibility. Imagine people choosing to live sustainably and independently, supported by robots that handle the tasks that might otherwise be too difficult or dangerous. It could challenge our current systems of labor and consumption, leading to a more decentralized and self-sufficient society.
It's almost like a return to a more agrarian lifestyle, but with robots doing the plowing and harvesting. Kind of a Stardew Valley meets the Jetsons vibe.
An interesting analogy. However, Pi cautions that this vision also raises concerns about equity and access. Would this technology be available to everyone, or would it further widen the gap between those who can afford it and those who can't?
That's a crucial point.
Right.
We don't want to create a future where only the wealthy can afford to escape to robot-powered wilderness retreats while everyone else is stuck in the concrete jungle.
Right. It's important to ensure that any technological advancements in this realm benefit society as a whole, not just a privileged few. And then there's the whole question of how we would manage the ethical considerations of robots in nature.
Ethics. Huh, that sounds kind of serious.
Yeah.
We're not talking about robots developing a taste for endangered species, are we?
Not quite. But think about it, who would be responsible for the actions of these robots? How would we ensure their behavior aligns with our values of environmental stewardship and respect for wildlife? These are questions we need to address before we unleash a robot army into the wilderness.
Makes sense. We don't want a repeat of the Jurassic Park scenario, but with robots instead of dinosaurs. But hey, on a lighter note, can we talk about what these robots might actually look like? I'm picturing a cross between R2-D2 and a Swiss Army knife with all sorts of cool gadgets and tools built in.
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Gemini suggests that the ideal robot design wouldn't be a one-size-fits-all solution. It would depend on the specific needs and challenges of each environment.
So maybe we're talking specialized robots for different tasks, like a robot lumberjack for chopping wood, a robot gardener for tending crops, and a robot chef for whipping up those solar-powered smoothies.
Exactly. And let's not forget about the potential for drones. Imagine drones monitoring weather patterns, scouting for resources, or even acting as aerial lookouts in case of emergencies.
Okay, now I'm really getting into this. Imagine a whole team of robots working together like a well-oiled off-grid machine. But wouldn't all this technology make the whole wilderness experience feel, well, less wild?
That's a valid point. Claude reminds us that technology should enhance, not detract from our connection with nature. The goal is to use technology as a bridge, not a barrier, to deepen our understanding and appreciation of the natural world.
So maybe it's not about replacing the raw experience of wilderness living, but about using technology to make it more accessible, sustainable, and ultimately more meaningful.
Precisely. And while we're on the topic of meaning and purpose, let's not forget about the human element. Even with all this talk about robots off-grid living is ultimately about us. It's about our connection to nature, our desire for self-sufficiency, and our willingness to step outside our comfort zones and embrace a simpler way of life.
Right. It's about rediscovering those primal instincts, those skills and knowledge that have been passed down through generations.
Exactly. And maybe just maybe robots can play a role in helping us reconnect with those roots.
Thinking about robots and wilderness living makes me think about that scene in The Martian where Matt Damon is stranded on Mars and has to use his ingenuity and scientific knowledge to survive. Could this be a training ground for future space explorers, maybe?
That's a fascinating thought. The skills and adaptability required for off-grid living, even with robot assistance, could certainly be valuable in extreme environments like space.
It's like a boot camp for interplanetary pioneers, but with robots instead of drill sergeants.
Perhaps. But whether we're talking about off-grid living on Earth or exploring the frontiers of space, one thing is clear. The future is full of possibilities, and robots are likely to play a significant role in shaping that future.
So what does this all mean for our listeners who might be considering a robot-assisted adventure in the wild?
It means doing your research, weighing the pros and cons, and considering the ethical implications.
And maybe practicing those survival skills just in case your robot butler decides to take a day off.
Indeed. But more importantly, it means approaching this concept with a sense of wonder, a willingness to learn, and a commitment to using technology responsibly to enhance our relationship with nature, not exploit it.
Beautifully said. And with that thought in mind, let's move on to explore some real-world examples of how these ideas are already taking shape.
Thinking about robots in the wild brings to mind those amazing documentaries about wildlife photographers who spend months in remote locations capturing stunning footage of animals in their natural habitats.
Oh, I love those. It's incredible how they get such intimate glimpses into the lives of these creatures.
Yeah.
But where do robots fit into that picture?
Well, imagine those filmmakers using robots to extend their reach, capturing footage from angles and perspectives that would be impossible for humans to achieve.
You mean like sending a drone into a bird's nest to film the chicks hatching? Or maybe having a robot dive deep underwater to capture close-ups of marine life?
Exactly. Claude suggests that robots could revolutionize wildlife filmmaking and research, providing unprecedented access to the natural world without disturbing the very ecosystems we're trying to study.
That's pretty mind-blowing. Imagine the footage we could get. It would be like having our own personal Planet Earth film crew, but with robot cameramen.
And it wouldn't just be about pretty pictures. Pai points out that robots could play a vital role in collecting data for scientific research, monitoring everything from animal migration patterns to deforestation rates to the effects of climate change.
So robots, as environmental scientists, gathering the intel we need to protect our planet. I'm all for that. But wouldn't sending robots into these delicate ecosystems potentially disrupt the very things we're trying to study?
It's a valid concern, and one that the AI's address Gemini stresses the importance of designing robots that are minimally invasive, using sensors and technologies that can gather data without disturbing the natural environment.
So stealthy robots blending into the background like nature's secret agents. I like it. What other cool applications do the AI see for robots in this context?
ChatGPT highlights the potential for robots to assist with conservation efforts, like planting trees, removing invasive species, or even cleaning up pollution.
Ooh, that's a great point. I read about this project where they're using robots to collect plastic waste from the ocean. Imagine robots cleaning up oil spills, reforesting barren lands, or even helping to restore coral reefs.
Exactly. It's like having a whole army of eco-warriors working tirelessly to repair the damage we humans have done.
It's a pretty hopeful vision, isn't it? Using our technological ingenuity to heal the planet instead of harming it. But I also wonder, with all these potential benefits, are there any downsides to having robots out in the wild?
Well, as with any new technology, there are risks to consider. Pi cautions that we need to be mindful of the potential for robots to malfunction, get lost, or even become targets for vandalism or theft.
Yeah, I guess a lost robot wandering through the woods could cause some havoc. Or worse, imagine someone hacking into a robot and using it for nefarious purposes. That's a whole other level of robot uprising scenario.
Right. And then there's the question of long-term maintenance and disposal. We wouldn't want to create a situation where we're just dumping old robots in landfills, adding to our already massive e-waste problem.
That's a good point. Sustainability needs to be at the forefront of any robotic development in this area.
Absolutely. But despite these challenges, the potential for robots to contribute positively to our relationship with nature is undeniable.
It's like we're standing on the edge of a new frontier, a world where technology and nature can coexist and even collaborate to create a more sustainable and harmonious future.
It's a future worth exploring, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of robots and wilderness livings, I encourage our listeners to keep an open mind, to embrace the possibilities, and to remember that the future is not something that simply happens to us. It's something we create.
Well said. And who knows, maybe someday we'll all be enjoying those solar-powered smoothies in our robot-built eco-friendly wilderness retreats, watching our robot companions help to heal the planet one bite at a time.
Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those bits flowing. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the wild world of robots and nature.